What happens that the economy's engine in many countries can't start? I'll try to prove that the economy is stuck due to deeper issues than what the economists indicate. I ask for patience to reach the end of this metaphysical essay, since they are topics that one prefers to avoid. They will challenge the doctrine that we were tough from our childhood. Person is a symbiosis of body and spirit, with the latter being who learns, reasons, and decides on simple and more complex actions. The I, the consciousness of self, is the spirit. He is not an ornament of the body. He is the owner of the body, and he handles it from above during a given period. It is obvious that a second before it is born, that little body does not practice any of these three functions, does not learn, does not reasons, does not decides. But it is also obvious that he practices them fully a moment after birth. But let's go deeper. That spirit that begins to animate a little body does not magically appear at the time of the first breath. Seems to come from other side, because it surprises us with his gender preferences, with his occupation and aesthetic preferences, as wanting to empower them in this new body. But the strangest thing that a child brings is his fortune, sort of an innate ability to know things and achieve goals that we never have taught them. Fortune, as you can see, it is to be understood in its double meaning. It is money and luck. It would be like the grand total of what we have delivered in our lives to the world, less what we have consumed from it. Like a kind of prize awarded by the world to those who help with his creativity. It is like if the Mortis would have pockets. The money, which is used by all civilizations, attempts to stimulate this valuable law of fortune. As much more as it accomplishes, much more powerful that civilization is. Some call it the law of karma. Our children are not premiers, are not originals. They are entrusted to us until they are old enough and independent. A known fact is that monsters, meaning advanced and outstanding spirits of all times such as Socrates, Leonardo, and others of today's era, have a curious statistic. Half of them are gay. They come with a preference of gender different from their bodies. And that should happen because an advanced spirit needs to find a little body with a nearly perfect DNA that can withstand such monstrous spirit. So it is logical to assume that they, when it comes the time of death, has to choose between few candidates. For this reason, not to lose its wonderful fortune, its wonderful karma, half of the time it must give up the next life's gender preference. Now, let's get into subject. When we are asked to not eat the fruit from the tree of knowing and decision because our kind that was just created, it would die, what is this trying to tell us? Surely it refers to the fruit of that tree whose branches are searching the physical world, whose trunk learns, reasons, and decides, and whose roots are sinking deeply into metaphysical world, loving, believing, feeling, putting desire and conviction to address actions. Its fruit, the fruit of this tree to know and decide, is nothing else than the prosperity, a new concept that did not know any of the above species, and that gives us that inverted tree, which is a consciousness of self, meaning that forbidden fruit, the prosperity, should not be eaten. It must serve as a seed for a future. If we eat it, we run the risk to become extinct, to go back to be a species as all the others. Now, let's go to today's society. All the countries seize a portion of the profits of all the companies, believing that they seize the owner of the company. But no, they are confiscating precisely the share of the profits which corresponds to the staff of those companies. Because the profits of all the companies are generated by capital and work proportionally to their respective costs. This offense to the human being, this crime against humanity, is not another thing than to eat the 90% of people's prosperity, because it stopped from being a private property of whom generated it to become a collective ownership and consumed at its discretion. Are we eating from the forbidden fruit? But the good news is that we can stop such audacity against the human species because we have the correct diagnosis. This way we would solve all social imbalances. Thank you, my friends. This is my proposal.